Hello, it's me, Alex Wellings. All right, everybody, this week on Coffee for Closers, we're talking all about webinars. How and do they work? Is it worth your time, energy, effort to do one of these things? Is it more of a supplement? Is it something you should be focusing your entire practice? Is it a good swap for the workshop? We're talking all about that and more this week on Coffee for Closers. If you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe. You drop us a like, give us a comment. It always seems to help. Thanks. All right, everybody, welcome to Coffee for Closers. This week we are talking all about webinars. Me and Mr. Rick Kallmeyer right here in the studio. Webinars. Everybody seems to want to do them right now, and some have had success, some have not had success. It's hard to make a choice on whether they work or not. We're going to discuss the pros and the cons and, again, what makes one work. In short story, it's yes, they can work. It's just a matter of, I think it's come down to what you prefer, really. Mm-hmm. Because, so we've done a ton of webinars now, as you know. We've done them on the, we'll call it B2B world forever. Mm-hmm. Webinars for advisors is how, not just us, but most IMOs communicate with their potential clients. And we see a lot of success there. But again, it's part of the advisor's job to stay on the cutting edge, per se, of the marketing world and the way in which you consume marketing advancements tends to be on the webinar front. If there were television shows out there about marketing, I imagine advisors would probably lend themselves to
watch that television channel. Yeah.
Quite frankly, it's like, what are we doing with Coffee for Closers? Like, at this point, we're talking about a lot of marketing concepts on Coffee for Closers, and advisors are preferring to watch this than, say, go to a webinar. We'll do a webinar, we might have 200-300 people on that.
Yep.
Or, we might have 100 people on that. But we'll do an episode of Coffee for Closers, 400 or 500 people will watch it, 600, 700 will watch it, and we'll get way more traction from something like that than, say, the webinar. So even that tide is changing in our world. When it comes down to the webinar world for our advisors, it seems to be that it's like, here's the thought. Let's start with the thought. The thought is, I'm going to do a webinar. I'm going to spend, because it's a webinar, I'm going to spend a lot less money, and because I have such a wide reach, I'm going to be able to tap all the different areas in the country and bring them to a webinar. And because there's so many prospects all over the place, I can get them at a lower cost per viewer acquisition.
And I can get ones
price
that I normally can't get because I'm not there.
Right.
I can reach a wider audience, even if it was to be the same cost per acquisition, right? At least I can reach a wider audience, right? We're here in Tampa, so we can reach Orlando, we can reach Jacksonville, Miami, instead of having to drive 3-4 hours to go do in-person things, right?
Right. And again, it lends itself to the virtual virtual appointments, and virtual appointments are there. Yep. But here's where and those are all true. Yep. Like, that's a true thing. You do a webinar, you're going to have a wider reach, and because you have a wider reach, you're going to have a lower, registration cost. Like, and what I mean by that is a cost per registrant. The problem is there's so much attrition in the conversion thereafter. There's no pain. I mean, it's so easy for somebody to no-show a webinar, because, let's face it, they understand, most folks are smarter than you think. They understand that this is going to be recorded, right? So there's no real need to be there live, per se. They could just ask you for the recording. Even if there isn't, they're willing to take the risk. 2, it's easy for people to not put it on their calendar, per se, because they don't have to go anywhere, right? And so for those reasons, they end up no-showing a lot of the times. Even
I think
if
it's easier to, we all experience it, right? Especially here at work, right? Like, I'll schedule something for lunchtime, and then 5 minutes before the webinar I'm supposed to be on about whatever it may be, a product launch or new concept somebody's doing, immediately get called on a phone call and get stuck on it for the first 45 minutes of the webinar. Like I had every attention to be on the webinar, something I wanted to watch, but something came up. I'm in a spot where I can be easily grabbed, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, is what it is. All good heart intentions for it, but it's different than if I was like, hey, I got to leave to go to this thing.
But then it's like in the back of your mind, it's like, well, I could just get the recording.
Yeah.
Or I could just call somebody.
Absolutely.
Get that information. Yeah. Right? And so you end up bailing on it. Mm-hmm. So you have this, and so that accounts for some of the attrition. So you really got to have numbers higher than that to account for the no-show.
Yep.
Right? And that's pretty fair with almost digital promotion anyway.
Mm-hmm. Anything, right?
But to be honest, digital promotion is so incredible that it usually accounts for that. Mm-hmm. You'll more than double your registrants than you would with mail and an in-person workshop with a webinar that's digitally promoted. Mm-hmm. Okay? So that's not the issue.
Yeah.
It then becomes this issue of like, okay, so I had to have that many registrations to account for the fall off there. Okay. But then on top of that, even if they do show up, there's still a really high chance that they're going to leave early in that webinar, right? So you got to be doing something to attract them to, because people can fall off. It's very easy for people to just leave a webinar, right?
Yep.
Just pack their bags and go, and you wouldn't even know on the webinar. You'd be it's hard to notice, right? Because, you're at 48 registrants, 45, 48.
You're focusing on doing the presentation and talking and making sure you do a well performance. Absolutely.
So you don't know when people exit. If that was an in-person workshop, good luck leaving. Once you're in there, it's hard to leave without being called out or being perceived as rude, and most people don't want to be perceived as rude. And I've seen guys on webinars make people turn their cameras on, so they feel a little more inclined to stay, but it's still very easy for them to just go, bloop, I'm out. Got to go.
Yeah, if your numbers are where they should be, right, 50, 60 people, it's like you're not going to see that.
You're not going to see them go. And then after that, so then you end up having to plug your value add a bunch of times so that if somebody gets the information they need and leave, that you've at least let them know how they can book an appointment with you.
Yep, and the reason why you would.
Why you would, which ends up detracting from the educational aspect, and the whole webinar ends up becoming very salesy.
Yep.
Right? And then so you lose people because it sounds salesy.
This guy's talking about a benefit analysis for whatever it is every 15 minutes.
He keeps hitting me. I get it. It's like, look, this guy's just trying to sell me something. And so you end up talking every other on-the-fence buyer out there, and you only get the buyers in heat, the ones that are ready to buy right now that really need help, that are willing to book that appointment, right? But a lot of folks aren't in it for those layups. They're in it for all the other people, too.
Yeah. And again, those layups are just going to stick through the webinar, at least to some degree. It doesn't mean you're actually going to be able to reach back out, get a hold of them, and set an appointment, right?
Right. So then you got to have enough shows from the registrants to survive that attrition of people leaving because of whatever reason before that webinar's over, and all the people you lost because you were a little too salesy or pushy. And now you're left with this small subset of people that are still there at the end that end up potentially booking an appointment. So let's say they book an appointment. Let's say every one of those people book an appointment. Then you've got to hold on to them through a virtual appointment process, which is shown to have, unless you're very, very good at it, a larger attrition rate than an in-person close rate. And it's like, it's not to say that this isn't possible, because it definitely is. We've proven it time and time again. Good presenters end up, of course, having the no-show fall off. But good presenters, really good presenters, I'm saying like there's plenty of good presenters. I'm talking about the ones that just razzle-dazzle the whole time. They're incredibly educational. They find a soft way to plug themselves throughout. They find little giveaways, little chat options. Like, they've harnessed this skill of giving webinar presentations, and they've got a major production going on. Those folks end up with more people. I mean, they survive through the potential attritions and come out with a more cost-effective workshop, or equally cost-effective. I'd say it's more cost-effective, but barely. And that becomes this thing. I was like, if it's such a headache for you to become to harness this new skill of giving webinars, it's just not statistically that much better off than just doing an in-person workshop that's digitally promoted.
Yeah.
It might definitely be more profitable, more profitable than doing a mailer-driven in-person workshop, right? because the cost is just so much less in digital world.
Yep.
So it becomes down to this thing is like, do you really value being able to just hang at your house, right? And do everything virtually and not have to worry about feeding and doing, driving all over town and, having an in-person office, right?
Yeah.
Like all of those expenses too. So it's like,
you'd have a better shot of doing a digital campaign in a different area, doing the workshops, and then just scheduling virtual appointments from there, in my opinion.
potentially,
Right.
yeah. Yeah.
Same story, right? If we're in Tampa, you're a Tampa advisor, and you want to start doing some business in Miami.
But it's like if
Jacksonville,
you
right?
enjoy it, though, and if you enjoy giving a digital webinar, though, I mean, it's not bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth it. Yeah.
It's, I mean, to me, it's just, again, it's like you got to be very, very good to survive that one against the fall off that comes with just any digital promotion. Then the fall off of people that, for whatever reason, just leave during your presentation, then fall off during a virtual appointment process. It's like, again, how much cost savings did you really have in those your customer acquisition cost almost becomes the exact same thing. But folks saw this as a really great opportunity in COVID because, again, there was no other option. So it was like, okay, this is a good option. Did you work clients potentially that you couldn't have worked locally? Yeah.
Great question. Yeah.
Right? So my professional conclusion on webinars really is, let's say I'm a guy that does 2 workshops a month religiously in my local area, and I see my numbers somewhat declining.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe I do like in triangle, like I rotate facilities or whatever. I work in an area. I would potentially go with a hybrid approach of, if I was successful at webinars to a degree, or I see a mild success right there, it'd be worth it to me to continue doing those, not maybe with the same budget I've allocated to in-person workshops, but in an add-on just once a month, doing a webinar.
Try to target different people.
Outside of my scope, outside of my areas only, just to see if I can't bring in some easy potential new clients that I wouldn't have gotten elsewhere.
Yeah.
Right? Because those will lead to referrals potentially. Again, it's outside my berth, but I would not stay local or stop doing my in-person workshops if I was successful at that. Because now, if I've never been successful at in-person workshops and I'm just, have a proclivity towards the online world, then obviously I go webinars, right?
Yeah.
Because probably you're not doing too well in the in-person world. But anyway, so do webinars work? Yes. Do I suggest everybody stop doing in-person workshops to start doing webinars? Not necessarily. You better be a very special person in that world in order for you to make sense of it all. And it is possible. We do have options for somebody to go and do that. The quality of the result is good, but again, you got to have experience working in the webinar world, working in the virtual appointment world.
And be a master at it.
And be very organized because, again, you're going to have a lot of names because there's so many people that register for them a lot of times that, you've got to be organized in the fact that you got, if you have 3 times the registrations, that's 3 times the confirmation. That's 3 times the potential show-ups, right?
Yep.
The follow-ups are 3 times as much, right? So the follow-ups, I mean, being like retargeting efforts to those that didn't show, getting the recording out and stuff like that. Becomes just a little more labor intensive to put one on.
You also collect a lot more data, though, right? Fill up a client database well.
That's true. That's true. So if you have a good, strong retargeting, then it becomes even more profitable. That's a good point.
Yep.
Anyway, it's webinars, again, post-COVID world, the webinar has become a piece of the puzzle for somebody to add on a moderate amount of new customer acquisition. Not a substitute, in my opinion,
for the
in-person world.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Diversify your marketing, add something on top of it.
A digital element.
If it brings something more to it, then, you got your extra.
But I would even just explore, like, you could get the same benefit from doing something like this. A lot of times, like, if you take the same money you would spend in promotion on webinars and started yourself a podcast that was frequent enough and had a call to action listed in it to some degree, like you could always call in, book an appointment with us, blah, blah, blah. You stay steady with it. We've stayed steady with this for a while.
Yeah.
you start to see appointments come from it because, again, you're there giving free, good education. You're talking about topics weekly. It tends to be the current events of the time rather than just a Social Security workshop anyway.
Yep.
And people end up watching you, seeing you, talk about something either intelligently or at least bringing up a healthy debate, right? And it ends up generating an audience. And depending on how far your broadband is or your reach is, potentially pulling clients from places that you would never have had clients in the first place, right? As long as you make it known that you'll sit down with them on something like this, right? But again, we've got to think from a digital world. I do think that there's an opportunity for pre-retirees to be moving money or doing retirement plans from a digital world. But think in the manner marketers people like us have to be cognizant of. How do people want to watch or consume information from a digital experience? I don't know a lot of people going home in their spare time to watch webinars.
Yeah.
They'll listen to radio. They'll listen to podcasts. They'll watch videos on YouTube. They will obviously watch like the Netflix and the television of the world. But I don't know a lot of people like, oh, yeah, I can't wait to get home and watch a webinar, or I've got to stay up to date on what's going on with the economy by watching this webinar tonight,
Yep.
And just because they'd go to in-person workshops, of course, that was the only option for them in the day. Maybe we shouldn't be so scared to try and reinvent something new. Yeah. I don't know. It's interesting. It'll be interesting to see where everything goes. But, webinars, have a mild amount of success. So, anyway, maybe confusing to conclusion, but I don't know.
It's a great additive to what a lot of people are doing, right? You do your in-person workshops. Again, you throw on a full digital structure, full digital platform to try to supplement what you're doing. Target areas outside of your local area you're already marketing to. And what comes of it, right? Now, should it be your entire backbone of your marketing? I don't think so, but I think I've seen a lot of business come from these webinars, and I think it can be a great supplement to it.
It can be. Again, I just feel like the work put into it should be because you enjoy doing it, not because you're looking at it to be this incredible resource for new customers, and that's why the podcast lends itself to maybe, in my mind, a better opportunity for something like that, because, again, it is something that's very easy to do, very easy to put on, and again,
I think sending an email on a topic with a landing page to a video, that's quick. A 15-minute video talking about something is a greater attention grabber than doing a scheduled Wednesday at 6:00 hour-long webinar. Be prepped for it.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think sending somebody an email and be like, hey, Alex, I know you're looking at this. Check this out, right? You watching it, here's these things about Social Security. It's like, I'll talk more with this guy.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll keep you updated as we continue to do more and more research on webinars, but we thought it'd be a very interesting prospect as more and more people are calling and asking about webinars, and the success of it is something that we'd get on and kind of talk about where we see webinars fitting right now as, a potential swap or change from the in-person workshop world. So anyway, if you have more questions about webinars, if you're interested in trying one, we've got a fantastic platform for you to try it. As well as training tips and tutorials on how to do them, execute them well. And then also, if you're looking for in-person workshops, we've got a fantastic option for those in our Learning Lab program. Incredible results. They're pumping, somewhere around 50, 60 people in a room for $2,000. I mean, it's incredible. Probably the best workshop value out there right now. And that's whatever workshop you want to do. But anyway, if you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out to us. But anyway, thanks for listening to us chat on all this. We'll see you right here next time on Coffee for Closers. All right? Take care.